Welcome to College of Circles. I'm Jeff, and today I'll be reviewing Critical Role's Monsters of Tal'Dorei Set 2. In a previous video, I looked at the Ember Rock and the Monsters of Tal'Dorei Set 1. Be sure to check that out with the link below. My criteria for figures is a 10-point scale with 0, 1, or 2 points in each of 5 categories. My categories are details in the sculpt, detail in the paint, the overall pose, the figure's versatility, and how much the figure inspires me to use it in my gaming. Although you can flavor text a figure to be anything you want it to be, I will be rating them as if what my players see in the figure is exactly what the characters are seeing in the game. Also, I play Dungeons & Dragons, so although I will use and review Critical Role and Pathfinder figures, my reviews are based on how I would use them in D&D. Now, let's see the monsters. First up, we have the Adronach. This interesting figure gets 1s for the sculpt and paint, a 2 for the pose, a 1 for versatility, and a 2 for inspiration. At a distance, this is a beautiful figure, but up close, there is a glaring lack of detail in the face and the wings. The pose almost makes up for those flaws, though. There is a regalness in the way it stands that helps establish the story and role of this creature. I would use it as a celestial being and give it a prominent role as an NPC in Elysium. At 2 and 3, we have the Centaur skeletons, with the second holding its own flaming head. I love both of these figures, with each getting a total of 8. These reminds me of a mod in Skyrim called Beast Skeletons. Once you see that mod, it's obvious it should have been part of the original release of the game. There should have been Centaur skeletons in my games all along. The mold is surprisingly sturdy, and there's excellent detail in the shadows between the bones and in the flaming skull. The only downside is the pose of the Centaur with the flaming head. I wish it had been as dynamic as the first Centaur skeleton. So which is worse, when a figure breaks as you're removing it from the packaging, or that it was so lackluster you don't even care that it's broken? At number 4, we don't have the Cold Snap Spirit, because it was too hard to glue back together for a figure I really wouldn't want in the first place. 0s all the way down. Now, a quick note about Critical Role figures. They tend to be more colorful, detailed, and unique than their Pathfinder or Icons counterparts, which can sometimes work against the figure or at times really make them stand out. At first glance, I thought our 5th figure, the Cyclops Stormcaller, was too cartoonish for my taste. After closer inspection, I absolutely love this figure, and it gets my highest score in the Tal'Dorei set with a score of 9. 2s in every category except for versatility. What makes this figure stand out is all of the little details. The patchwork cloak has different textures for each type of fabric. The Cyclops is just slightly looking up, as if looking up to the sky for whatever he is conjuring. This is a nearly perfect blend of sculpt, color, and pose to tell a story with an inanimate object, and this figure has a real personality I am going to explore in a future game. The 6th figure in this set is Demon Feed Spider. This solid entry gets a score of 6, with a 2 in the sculpt and 1s in every other category. I love how the hairs and flames are worked into the sculpt. Also, how the legs are not attached to the base, leaving them free to kind of wiggle around. This figure can get reused often in elemental, hell, or abyssal settings. At 7, we have a slight disappointment with the Etten. This figure gets 1s in every category except versatility, where it gets a 0, for a total of 4. For a large figure, it has very little detail in the paint or sculpt and really comes off as a blue blob of flesh. The only reason it doesn't get a lower score is the expressions in each head are somewhat amusing. When you stand this figure next to the Cyclops Stormcaller, the difference in the level of detail is striking. There are better versions of this monster out there already. The 8th figure is a flaming skeleton, and again, yes, we need more of these. This figure gets a total of 7 with 2s in paint and inspiration, and 1s in sculpt, pose, and versatility. I love that they painted the actual skeleton black to show it's charred, and I now want an army of flaming skeletons in different poses. The only slight issue is there are some wonky details in the mold, such as the lower pelvic bones that look like reading glasses, and some of the detail is hard to read even up close. The penultimate figure is the female satyr, and the reason I actually bought this set. I have a new player that just joined my home game, and she is playing a satyr, so I'm happy to now offer her a gender-appropriate figure. I'm also happy that this figure is another standout with 2s in the sculpt and pose and an overall score of 7. She is leaping about mirthfully as a satyr should, and there are some nice textures in her attire. Finally, we come to figure 10, and yet another excellent figure. The Wraithroot tree really does stand out, and not just for its size. I give it 2s for the sculpt, paint, and inspiration, with 1s for the pose and versatility, and a total of 8. The little eyes throughout the body create intrigue. Are they the creature's eyes, or are they other little creatures lurking in his moss? The sculpt has a mix of textures from bark, moss, and sticks. The only drawbacks to this figure is the pose, which looks to me like this big guy is trying to sneak around, and that the wooded stick areas are painted the same color as the body. There should have been more color on this to accentuate the different textures. The Monsters of Tal'Dorei Set 2 is an excellent set and would have had an average score of 7.1 if it weren't for the Cold Snap Spirit dragging it down to a 6.4. I plan on featuring at least 7 of these figures in my current campaign. Once again, I'm Jeff. Thank you for watching this episode of College of Circles. If you like this content and want to see more, you know what to do. Hit those like and subscribe buttons, share, and leave a comment below. What do you look for in figures, and how do you use them in your games?